Hey guys, Boris here, bringing you another VOD review. The worlds are just about to begin, therefore for one last time let's jump in game into these pro scrims. And today we're going to be following Rety, who is a player that still has to prove themselves as they managed to qualify through one of these last regional slots, and the next set is going to be the first set they play into the pro circuit. Therefore perhaps might not be yet accustomed to the extremely high tempo and very small margins of error these top players make, especially in these kind of tournament settings. Therefore, let's see how he manages to follow. We are starting with a Nivea pair and a Rod and a tier that definitely is going to indicate that we want to be playing into some form of an AP opener perhaps, and we have a Caitlyn and Shop as after, but this is also a very common strategy done. We do not see any upgrades and did not consider ourselves a possibility for win streaking, especially since we are playing in a component and was there definitely going to be quite strong boards, and it's very prominent here to make 10. Caitlyn can do it. It's quite safe for her to be in that corner position to do it without any item slammed. Therefore, since we are now committing to this low streak, very much an econ augment is appealing so that we can perhaps stabilize either on stage 3 through some form of a 4-cost unlock or spike in the form of a reroll. Therefore, Raining Low here seems quite interesting. Mace as well is going to lose a little bit of value due to this being the component, and will Saves goes for Crimea River. Otherwise, with these more generic augments that we'll be looking for some perhaps in stage 3 or 4. Speedy double kill we obviously cannot play from a tempo spot at the moment, and the item value we would not have this item value unless we opted to definitely roll for Bard on 2-3, but even then the strategy is not as sound to be playing for. Same goes for Salvage Bin, is a tempo augment that you want to be playing for, and we're most likely going to be even starting from full open here. You can see the lobby is quite high tempo, mostly stars are born, dupes being used already to push out the units. Definitely a lot of players playing for win streak, but there was one player that might be perhaps playing for low streak, therefore we opted to just simply open for it here, going to make the econ, and most likely going to be also rolling for Bard, as we see lifting competition from Revan here. Still has to get their LeBlanc on, like LeBlanc 2 and a Scion 2. With these component angles, you're going to expect quite strong boards. Therefore, sometimes just taking this low streak spot and accumulating econ and playing for that stage 3, as he's here has not even popped his item anvils yet, is going to simply evaluate what the game gives him, and most likely going to play around this Bard reroll. Unlock, and see what he manages to roll for. Really hope that the next set also brings some form of mechanic as Bard, as this has allowed you to open up new strategies, has allowed you to play around in one of the most crucial parts early game, where you do not have the most agency up to roll. Now, we see just Latte here, and perhaps we're not even going to be rolling for Bard, simply going to saying, okay, we have enough econ, we do not. I would very much like to roll for Bard here to provide us a form of direction, but instead it seems that he sees these Yordles, and we had 2 component anvils, going to pop find another Rod, so we're most likely going to be playing in some form of an AP line with the Death Cap Slam, also nightly done here, popping that component anvil, saving it here, but quite few players probably do so in component anvils, so that we can see what the carousel offers for us and pick a completed item for that to synergize with it. I don't think this thing is going to change. However, there has been a teaser released that the carousel might be gone next set. Therefore, we'll have to see what they replace it with. Perhaps last few days to capitalize on this strategy. Now, I would imagine here that we might even sell, but even no, okay, so we are going to be holding on to these 2 Yordles here, thinking that we have a potential to simply go for Yordles. Paying a single gold for them is not that bad, also gives us the chance to buy out the shop and now try to string together potentially some kind of a board. We'll still have to scout the matchups, as perhaps Litu Shan or AQ1H is playing around a weak board. Therefore, yeah, going to just simply hold on to these Yordles, as they could allow us to perhaps print some upgrades, want to get to that Veigar, or for a little bit extra gold. We saw that the Jinx player was already selling on their own, but we're securing this 5 streak since we want as much econ as possible from this kind of spot. A little bit low on HP since we were in full open, but this should be sufficient. Allows us to label to 5 here. We should be quite fine with an item slammed and 5 units plus a few traits to just kill the Krugs. have been nerfed quite a few times, even though there's still players that find themselves losing from these kind of spots. Simply use that little bit of extra gold level to ensure you're going to win, even if you're not making 50, that is, of course. So going to unlock the cannon and going to play for Yordle. Hopefully print us a little bit of better upgrades. Also Kobuko being an upgrade here is another way that we can help ourselves, therefore holding on to these bruisers. Going to look for a potential way to stabilize. Could perhaps even consider going level 7 on to the next round to simply secure this Veigar unlock and then win out for the rest of the stage 3. We have fought also most of the stronger players, however we have to see what our pool is going to look like. Coming up on here, exclusive customization will be the most appealing option at the moment. Explosive growth would not provide us any kind of value. Spreading roots, we have already kind of committed this kind of AP plan. If we simply got tossed some emblems that we are not able to play around, would not be great. Plus we are not exactly being able to fully capitalize on the item tempo they would provide right now. Therefore, I would lean exclusive customization. However, he seems to value spreading roots quite high. Perhaps still valuing that his game plan is not set from this point. And item tempo would be nice, especially since we do not really seem to have frontline items at the moment. Now, we do see Golemify, and we have Bruiser in, is going to give it a little bit of an extra HP, and our board is very cheap. We have Econ quite high, and we have a cheap board, and we could just simply rip the Golemify, in my opinion, from here. That's going to help us stabilize, going to give us upgraded 2-star unit. It's almost value half of our board in its own. So we're not losing that much on advanced low, and again, we do not need the extra econ at the moment. Therefore, yeah, we're going to level again or to level 7 here, so that we are able to try to stabilize here, string together some kind of a board, able to pick up some of the Yordles, and also we had that Kobuko incoming, which was a neat thing to note as well. Going to get to this Yordle spike, find a Garen as well, with the defender, probably we have the defenders, I believe. No, we do not have them yet, but once we do, that's also going to give a little bit of magic resist and armor for that golem. These traits that do provide some board-wide resistances, or mostly resistances, are quite good for this golem since it already has a bunch of HP. So going to drop down to just this Veigar carry with 2 Yordle and getting the Arcanist Splash, and we should have a quite strong board as our frontline is simply sorted, and quite a lot of these boards, especially if they're going for until their 3-5 rolldowns, are not going to be able to just get through this golem. Able to now pick up a 2 streak, level 7, just barely missing 30 here, but still with the econ situation could be quite high. The downside obviously generally with these golem and Damify augments are that they're going to nuke your econ quite heavily. Therefore, you cannot really take them from a low econ spot unless you're in a very desperate situation and going to be playing for placements. Especially with the level 8 the cost increases, it's extremely hard to do. Now we do high roll on the word with that 1%er here. I mean, you're bound to hit one of the 5 costs in about 20 shops, so it's not that bad to hit them, find them, but the warn is obviously going to be an immense value here as it increases our cap. At this point, we would be struggling for the item augments. Even though our frontline is sorted, we will want to have another carry online as soon as possible, and eventually also sort out some form of a frontline presence. And the Warren is going to now being able to alleviate that for us, as we should have another 2 artifacts printed by about 5-1 if you're able to create them throughout the stage 4. Therefore, picking these rounds here is crucial. And we queue in a quite strong LeBlanc reroll player, but they are carrying that Scion 2 unit that has been disappointed for me this set ever since they got his nerf. But the LeBlanc with 3 items is simply extremely strong and is actually being able to burst through this golem for ourselves. Able to pick up already a Veigar pair, which is quite nice. Now, is he priming that Mel unlock? Seems so, and we'll have to see if we are able to play around that in any form of a fashion. We do not exactly have any other Noxus units, and now we find a Zillion as well. Now that is going to provide us with the potential to even go for a level 9 as well, and gives us a valuable secondary carry online, as we seem to simply be dropping these AP items, so that's going to work for ourselves quite nice, and it has synergized with this golem. little bit of a high roll in these terms of these 5 costs, but if you are going to be placing high in these lobbies, you generally have to be high rolling something, as the margins of error that are allowed by these players are very niche, and it's quite hard for you to simply just play your best TFT and win out in any form of a fashion. Now, Sword Overflow, we're not in need of an AD items at the moment, and Tiny and Deadly is more also in attack speed. There's melee burst comps, that is not in our plan, and hold the line here could provide us quite some value. We already have the extra frontline in term of Golem. Only thing that would be that we'll have to be positioning in such a way that the Golem draws the initial aggro, as we do not want the rest of our units be dying that much. Bronze for Life would be an interesting choice. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the plan is to cook up with this board, but it will require us a little bit of investment to figure out. But it provides the armor and magic resistance, quite nice, obviously, for the Golem. Would be also a valuable and interesting choice if you're able to find a board that's going to benefit. You would need to slot in at least about 6 to 7 traits to make this augment worthwhile. Golden Egg, obviously, we cannot take it. This is a prismatic augment, and we're not in a spot where we're guaranteed to win or able to sack through unlock this. Therefore, both of these combat augments seem quite fine, have their downsides and upsides. Let's see what Rety believes to be the better option here. As we can see, he also considers this to be a quite hard choice. Now, obviously, once you're in game, it's also quite hard to figure out these Bronze for Life boards exactly. Therefore, seems to go for the safer choice of simply picking the Hold the Line, which is going to be quite valuable still, even though we cannot fully utilize this AD component of it. And it's nice. Now we'll have to play the positioning game of trying to get this Golem in front of the carries, as we are able to do so with the MF right here. Otherwise, from augments per that perspective, I believe we could have also considered a potential for some form of an item augment, just to simply sort out another carry, another tank. But the combat augment is going to provide us with the most immediate spike, and we can utilize now this little bit of an extra econ from the Zillion to be able to go to level 8 and find the Vagar too, which now hopefully we're going to be quite stable. I believe we have a Galio unlock incoming as well at this point. And now with the sufficient forms of a backline we have, and yes, we also another nice thing he did, prime that Mel unlock from Ambessa in the shop, and now once he's level 8, he's able to unlock the Mel from himself, for himself. Another thing that you can definitely do if you're, as you noted, the positioning where he simply sacks fully for that Ambessa to die. Going to, simply pick up a Sunfire, trying to get that utility sorted out fully for ourselves, positioning the war next to that Golem as well in a form that so that he lives the longest. And it seems that we are mapping out some form of an Arcanist board, obviously playing around this Vagar, utilizing that as our tempo to make it to the level 9 hopefully. But we queue into this Massy Players, a quite close fight with the Dragon Guard's extremely strong augment for the line, but we're able to pick it. Another thing to note about is the Massy line is that there was a tweet about the pro scrim stats accumulated, and the interesting thing to note was that the AP Demacia never went 8th. Obviously that partially comes from these top players playing it from the correct spots, which would be a tempo spot to be playing into. And then this other component is that this comp is able to stabilize quite hard on stage for as long as you're able to get to your Garen. Now the Garen being the contested part is can be quite an issue if you don't have sufficient amount of econ, as well as some players might just be pulling out Lux, playing that as their stage 4 carry. But if you identify that is not going to be too much contested, this line stabilizes very hard on stage 4 and is able to win out against the rerollers, and you're going to punish all the guys going fast 9, therefore you're able to gain some placements from there. Simply would assume that we're going to make the declock here. You just made sure it's scouting the lobby that there is a sufficient amount of AP, and going to go for the declock here. Have some frontline items sorted out now as well, and could potentially, even in the later on, once we get to a proper frontline carry, position them on the opposite side so that we have both sides covered, or the center, just so that we do not get clumped fully from one side. And obviously we also have, as throughout the stage, just utilize the other units to be frontline positioning them for our carries, as simply this Vayne or the Sona is not going to provide much of a value, but we get rapid fire Iron Darken Bow for the Vayne, which is actually going to enable her as a potential third carry here, and that's the upside of this Golemify augment. If you have this kind of an extra item influx, such as we had from the encounter, you are able to find a third carry to get online as well. Now we had the Galio, not as we mentioned before, so we probably are planning to transition out of this 5 Demacia at some point for higher value units. Not exactly sure if we're able to slot in the Ziggs we could use these items as well, but I think Senna is going to be quite alright as well, simply being an aura 5, because it does get jumped on by the Dragon Guards by Jarvan. They're not going to do too much, but we're able to take them out as we are on the opposite side. Could probably be looking here either for a third item for the Senna or a frontline item. It's on the Annie here, so that's very appealing for us, as we already had planned the Annie board out. We could be potentially slotting in here, and also playing around 6 Arcanist would not be bad. The downside of the Arcanist is sometimes that, especially until you make it to Tibber 2, you do not have the frontline. The Golem would enable it, but we're going to give up on it, as I would assume that the thought process here being that we simply do not have enough AP items to make this mana items to make this Annie really work. She simply loves your, like, even 3 mana gen items are very, very good for her. As when you're playing into these Arcanists, obviously you get the maximum amount of raw AP from the trait. But we have lost the fight here against the Freljorborg. As you saw, we had the Golem on the opposite side, and the Volibear is especially a big threat is a big threat in the form that if he's able to get to your weak side, get to that 4th cast, he becomes an absolute menace. Therefore, we now are splitting our tanks so that we can cover both sides. Had to be more meticulous about our positioning before. Now, due to that, we're able to have the Swain a little bit withstand the fast 9 home from Pajaz Latte. And very close fight as we were able to secure a top 3 from this fight alone. And still going to be a tight margins fight. Just a couple of fights left. With this, when we're still, you can see that even though playing for a fast 9 plan from this Zillion, we thankfully have been able to hit upgrade the frontliner and our backline units, but we do not really have the strongest form of a boards just yet. Now transitioning into some of the more valuable Aura 5 costs, and still only on a Garant pair, so have not found that Silas yet. Going to be transitioning items to Galio 2. Another thing that Galio 2, especially with many kind of magic resist items, can actually pump very much. Galio 1, not so much. He can just simply get one-shot by a bunch of this stuff. As we can see, there's the Sani play that has held and has prevented us from hitting our plan. Thankfully, there was a ghost fight and we were able to just pick up the win here, and still not fighting for the top 3. Now that we are able to finally find this Silas unlock, opts to unlock it and not go for it? It's a interesting choice, as to not exactly sure why he would have went for that kind of plan. We don't really have the Silas items, but other than that, perhaps values this defender on this golem a little bit more, but we would, I mean, obviously Silas is defender as well, so we're going to get that. Now the Garen 2 is back. But not interested in it. This I'm not exactly sure what the plan is here. Perhaps simply trying to fish for that Senna 2 as the most value that he believes to be there. Going up against the Mel board. Perhaps, yeah, simply assume that this Silas would not be doing that much for ourselves. But it's very stacked board with multiple 2-star 5 costs, and as such we're lose here to the Iron Bog. But very quite few nuances and very well executed game from Rety here. Hopefully he's able to prove himself coming into these Worlds tournament. But just to recap, we started with noted that we're not going to be playing for a strong board, therefore we opted to make our econ interests early. That enabled us to be able to pick this Golemify augment, which together with the Vygar unlock that we had planned for playing around the Yordles, even though we had to sack them, allowed us to get to this unlock, stabilize on stage 3, and through finding another form of Nikon through Zillion, we were able to make it to the line and start capping our board. Even though we did not exactly get there, we still found a way to stabilize hard and take out a lot of players and secure a second place through picking another combat augment that simply by positioning in a way that we are able to get the maximum value out from it, provided with the combat power necessary to secure these placements. Best of luck to him in the Worlds, and I would like to thank you for watching, and I hope that you learned something new, and I wish to see you in the next one. Have a good one.